All right, you guys, we'll get going in just the next minute or two. People still joining. Again, if you haven't taken a look down at the bottom where it says chat, if you click on that, you can see I've hit some links already in there. Hopefully you guys are staying nice and dry. The weather got nasty on my way home from the office, so hope you didn't have the bad weather I drove into. It was raining hard. And I often have conversations. I get caught up on my phone calls on the drive, and it's not easy to talk over the loud rain. So hey, Paul, real quick, I'm gonna send you a text. Nothing imperative, but it's something from Brad when you have a minute.
Okay.
All right, you guys, let's go ahead and get started. Well, hey, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope that these are helpful for you. I hope that these are a resource for you. Doing these webinars and then doing in-person meetings, our goal is to continue to, the heart behind the RIA, the North Shore Real Estate Investors Association, is to help raise the tide. Real estate investing can change your life. I know it's changed mine drastically. So it's a huge part of something I'm passionate about. And I know that many other people can benefit from it. And so the goal here is just to have these meetings so I can bring people in to share with you so that we can all learn, so that we can all get closer to our goals. So one of the things I just wanted to share a little bit about is, so for those of you who are new to North Shore RIA, so first of all, our events are free. And that's a huge part, something that I worked hard towards, because I want to make sure that there's not a barrier of entry for people. And the other thing too is I do my best to be Mama Bear and not have someone who's coming in who's trying to sell you something for $9.97 and you're constantly getting pitched and sold something. So there's a big level that I'm constantly trying to protect from that, because I don't know about you guys, but that gets tiring really quick. So one of the other things is that I want to encourage a level of collaboration over competition. And a part of that is I can't tell you how many times that I see people who are actively doing deals with the people who are in our RIA, whether that's wholesale deals, whether that's, someone buying a flip, whether that is someone, finding a contractor in the group, things like that. So the goal is that a lot of times we can go further together. So with that being said, these meetings, they're free. We do have some local sponsors. I know a ton of times I get a text, a call, a Facebook message. Hey, who do you recommend? So I just want to give a quick shout out to some of our local sponsors. First and foremost, we've got Christina Ruska with Loan Depot. If you are considering a refinance right now, which I just read that someone got 2.2 in the office earlier today, I was telling Paul, I said, my goodness, someone got a 2.25% 30-year loan. That's crazy. I can't fathom that low of a mortgage, right? So if you're considering, like, say, a refinance, or you're just trying to get a quote, Christina Ruska, she's a lender with Loan Depot. We've got Wayne Sanji, Jr. and Senior, here with Wayne Sanji and Associates. They are brokers, but they're also property managers on the South Shore and the North Shore. And they just recently, during COVID, expanded out to the Gulf Coast, so in Mississippi. So if you're looking for property management, secondly, we got Mia Rogers. She's with Engel and Volker. She is a real estate investor, but also a realtor. So if you're looking for someone who's an investor-friendly agent, who invests herself, which is helpful whenever you're looking for something. We've got Fleur de Lis Title. They just opened an office. If you guys haven't heard yet, they opened an office in Slidell. They are a regional title company ranging, South Shore, North Shore, all over the place. So one of the things I appreciate is I did a closing on Monday with them. Yesterday, today's Tuesday. And I did it, my sellers were in a different office and I was in one of their other offices. And so it's absolutely possible. I appreciate that part. Justin Harris, he's a land wholesaler, a land flipper as well. We've got Bob Norton, who's a real estate specific CPA. He's also a broker. He's also an investor. Sorry, Bob, I just got my taxes to you. And then we got Ryan with Total Construction and Renovation. He is a flipper and he's a contractor. So first of all, with him being a flipper, ding, 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 that should be someone for your buyer's list. But he's a contractor and he's an investor friendly one at that. And then there's Quest Trust Company. They help with like private money lenders who might want to open up a self-directed IRA or something along those lines. And so at the end of the day is in that little chat down at the bottom, if you guys are saying, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so, let me say like, okay, I'm looking for an investor-friendly title company in Baton Rouge, or I'm looking for, someone who can help me with siding. A really great thing that has a lot of help. They have a lot of people who are in that. I put on there a facebook.com/group/SELA investors. We have nearly 2,000 investors in our region. So if you're on Facebook and you're not in that group, check us out, because that's it's a great place to network online. And you can meet with people, virtually and ask for referrals. You can ask we had people in there talking like, hey, I'm trying to go, I'm facing an eviction right now during Corona. Who knows how can you help? People share deals there, find deals there, all things along those lines. Anna just said, I'm in a loan signing agent group. She's a notary, and she says several have said that they have notarized quite a few refis in the 2.25/2.5% range. That's just crazy, you guys. So if you've got a loan and it is not at that price, it is not at that interest rate, now an investment deal, those are going to be owner occupied, but if it's an investment deal, it's going to be a little bit different. But like your primary house, that is not, it doesn't hurt to check it out. A few other quick announcements real quick, you guys, bear with me here and then I'll shut up and get out the way. But first of all is, if you guys haven't heard, Paul, so I invited Paul and Charlene, because I know that they have a wealth of knowledge that I'm looking for. And so I've appreciated them coming on and chatting. But Paul and I, Paul's been on the radio for 15 years. It's a home improvement show that you can call in. So maybe you're like, hey, I want to learn more about construction, or I want to learn more how I can fix up my rental houses, or I can fix up my own house. Tune into that show. Paul, it's a call in. You can call or text in with questions about your roof or your AC or about your foundation or whatever. And so Paul has done a fantastic job last 15 years on that show. Recently, I joined him about 2 months ago, and I join in on the show and I talk about real estate problems. So I answer questions about foreclosures. I answer questions about landlocked land, or, just questions in general as far as the real estate, especially the real estate problem side of stuff. And so that has been, so that's fun. So if you guys, if you're local, you can listen on WWL. So that's the big 870 AM from 11 AM to 1 PM on Saturdays. And so tune in, you can call in, you can just listen. I know that, just being a part of the show, I've learned a ton just hearing from Paul's decades of experience in construction. So that's been fun. I want to real quick, so if you've got a pen and paper and you're saying, hey, I'm what other type of webinars or things do you have coming up? I want to give you the list because it's 4 strong. I just put on Facebook that I'm rolling out 2 new ones tonight. So you guys are going to hear them for the first time. So first one is we've got June 30th. So June 30th is going to be the next webinar. Due to COVID, we usually meet in person, but due to COVID, we're doing a lot more webinars. So the next meeting is going to be June 30th. It's going to be a webinar, just like you signed up like this one, you're going to have to sign up. However you heard about us, go there, but I'm also going to put in the link, the event link, so that you can go there in the chat section at the bottom. But that one is going to be what every real estate investor needs to know about 1031 exchanges. This is really important if you have rental property that you're thinking of selling. A 1031 exchange is a really great concept as far as tax deferment. You're kicking the taxes down the road. So I have someone, you've got to utilize a special company whenever you do that. And so I have someone from a local company who's going to come and share just on the process. So you can just understand that a little bit more, especially if you are thinking of selling some rentals or something along those lines. So that is going to be on June 30th. It's going to be about 1031 exchanges. So First American Exchange Company, the vice president of that is going to come share. That's really huge, guys. If you plan on owning rentals and selling them at some point, it's a great way to trade up. It's a great tax incentive. It's a great, it is a great concept. Okay, so that's June 30th. So then on July 2nd, myself and Bob Norton will be sharing, and we are going to be sharing on house hacking. So what every real estate investor needs to know about house hacking. And what house hacking is we're going to tackle and attempt to tackle the conversation of what do you do with your primary residence? As an investor, as an entrepreneur, what are some ways that you can work on your, getting a deal on your primary residence or something along those lines? So a big part of that is a lot of people hear, hey, buy a duplex, live in one side and rent the other. That's great, but what if you can't find a duplex? What if it's taken you forever to find something like that, or a fourplex? So there's multiple. So I'm currently house hacking. One of the ways I'm going to show you in my house, and I'll talk more about that. So that's July 2nd. And we're going to talk about, hey, what are some options for investors and entrepreneurs to do with their primary residence? So here are the 2 new ones. If you're ready, you're going to be the first one to know about it. So I've been using we're now in 3 masterminds that are nationwide. And over the years, I travel to a lot of conferences and I make a lot of relationships with people. And some of these people are just killing it. And I'm like, you know what? I want to get these people in front of you guys. Again, not people who are like, oh, let me sell you a course for $997, but have them come talk about important topics. So I have started to convince some of them to join us. So the first one is going to be my friend Mitzi Diane. She's out of Texas. And when I tell you that this woman is killing it, so if you know what wholesaling is, she has made the largest wholesale fee I've ever heard of. She made $400,000 on a wholesale fee. This woman consistently buys apartments and buys commercial deals, but she also wholesales them. She also flips them. She has rentals. This woman is operating at a high level. And here's the thing is she's been in this business long enough that she's lost it and then got it back. And she knows how to build a business. She knows how to do things at a high level. I said, hey, Mitzi, what do you feel is really important for people to know? She's actually going to talk about mindset. And she's going to talk about finding your flow and kind of getting out of your own way. Because here's the thing is so many people, and I can attest to this myself, so many people want to do those big deals or do a large level of, high level real estate investing, but they get in their own way mindset wise, a lot of things along those lines. So July 7th, Mitzi Diane, I'm going to create that event. She's going to talk about, look, I'm telling you, this woman, every single time I've learned a lot from her. She is killing it. She's a single mom on top of all that. It's just fantastic. All right, so that's July 7th. July 14th, we're going to go back and meet in person. So July 14th, we're going to start meeting in Covington again. Here's the thing is, I know with everything going on with COVID, not everyone feels comfortable meeting right now, and that's okay. So let me talk to you about what the meeting is going to look like, and then let me share some other things. First of all, it will still be recorded. So if you can't make it or you don't feel comfortable making it, you can watch the recording. Secondly, I just have one of these lying around, but we are going to have like a sanitation area, okay? So you can, some sanitizer and things like that. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to attend. You can watch online, but maybe you feel comfortable attending if you're wearing a mask. You're more than welcome to wear a mask if that's something that you feel comfortable with. So that is going to be July 14th at the We Stay Suites in Covington. If you've ever been to one of our Covington meetings, this is where we meet. And it's going to be in the conference room there. Back in March, when I remember March 12th, it was when like everyone took COVID seriously. I immediately got people from different parts of the real estate industry. And I said, I want you on a panel. Tell me, what is your business experiencing with COVID? How are you adjusting? And so I don't know if you guys remember, that was like, I think our first webinar. And I just had this panel of people from all across the real estate industry. And I said, how is COVID affecting everything? This is what we're going to start off. We're going to do part 2. I'm going to bring back people on the panel from multiple parts of the real estate. I'm talking lenders, title attorneys, realtors, property managers, contractors, flippers, the whole 9 yards. And I'm going to say, hey, what are you experiencing? How have you adjusted your business in the last 3 months? Because I know so many people ask me like, hey, what is COVID doing to the investing world? And so that is what we're going to do. It's going to be a panel type event. And I hope that it's going to be really beneficial for you guys. I know we got great feedback from that webinar. So that is going to be something that I'm looking forward to. So the last 2 ones, July 7th and July 14th, I am going to be rolling that out. On however you heard about this event, I'll be rolling that out soon. So I have been talking for a good while. I'm going to go ahead and finish these thoughts. 2 things, guys. I was on the phone call with 3 different investors today, just helping them through and helping find a solution for some deals. If you need help, especially here on the North Shore, if there's something I can help with, feel free. Look, this is my cell number, 985-202-7514. I'm gonna put that in the comments section. So if you see down the bottom where it says chat, I put my phone number down there. If I can help you, feel free to text me, give me a call, and I'm happy to help. And lastly, guys, I'm gonna let Paul and Charlene introduce themselves and get started without further ado, but ask questions here down in the chat section. If you have any questions, ask them there, engage, take notes. I'm telling you, these people are people that I want to sit at the feet of and learn. And so these are, I feel like this is a great opportunity for people to get some wisdom in here. So engage and take some notes, okay? All right, without further ado, Paul, Charlene, let's have you guys come share.
All right. Hey, good evening, everyone.
Hey.
It's a great honor to be here. Thank you, Courtney, for having us. So let me just introduce ourselves. In fact, I'm going to let Charlene introduce herself, and then I'm going to go next.
Well, I'm Charlene LaGrange. I'm a CPA by trade, and I've been working with Paul during our businesses for a long time now. We've been married for 29 years and have been working together for all those years. He makes the money and I account for it.
Well, she does a lot more than that, but anyway. So let me tell you my background. So I'm primarily in construction, have been ever since high school, started working for developers and contractors in high school and just haven't stopped. How I work in construction may have changed over the years, but it's still construction related. And currently, as Courtney mentioned, we do the radio show on Saturday mornings on WWL from 11 to 1. And it's a call-in radio show, and it's really about kind construction, home improvement projects. And then since we've added Courtney for the last few months, we're also incorporating some real estate solutions and ideas and tips into that as well. So that's really worked out well. In addition to real estate investing, Charlene and I have a couple different properties that we own. And it's really something that has been passed along from generation to generation. My great grandfather did it. My grandfather did it. My parents still do it. My sister is also involved in real estate investing, and Charlene and I are as well. And our kids are now, we have 4 kids, 1 girl, 3 boys, and one of our kids already has 2 homes as well. One is an investment, one's his primary. So we're building, or at least our goal is to build a system in place where we can bless our children and also bless our children's children. And we really take that to heart. Later on when we talk about visions and goals, that's one of the things that we'll certainly bring up and talk about that a little bit more in greater detail. But as we are making choices and decisions, we're keeping the end in mind. What is the end goal? We're keeping that in mind. And then, as Courtney mentioned, we've known Courtney for a few years now through the RIA. If you don't, attend the RIA, or if you don't watch it online, you need to start putting that in your calendar. It's something that is a wealth of information. The networking opportunities there, and the number of people that are in the audience is tremendous. And that's actually how we met Courtney. And we've been joint venturing and doing business partnerships together since the first of the year, and really just have enjoyed it thoroughly. And she is just a walking encyclopedia when it comes to real estate investing and options and structuring deals. So if you're in a pickle of saying, what is the best way to structure this deal? I need I need some assistance. I need someone to come coach me. You need to reach out to Courtney, because she is phenomenal at what she does. So, all right, let's get back to our topic of discussion. So why money matters to entrepreneurs and investors. This is part 2. As we mentioned in the chat section, there's a YouTube channel link. If you hadn't seen part 1, you go back and look at part 1. Part 1 was really sort of a 30,000 foot view and talked about different things, as we spoke about general money tips, how to focus, how to pivot with COVID-19, making better choices relating to manage your money and also manage your resources. But for tonight, we're going to talk about, we're going to actually zero down and get into some systems that Charlene and I do and how we do things. And I'm going to encourage you to ask questions. So in the chat, type out your question. We're going to get to them as quickly and as promptly as we can.
Well, tonight we're going to talk about a few topics. We're going to talk about budgeting. We're going to start with budgeting. We're going to talk about managing your cash, debt management, decisions. You have to make decisions with relation to your debt. We're going to talk about control of production and your money. We're going to try to tell your money how to work for you. Budgeting is a great tool for that. Remember, 2 weeks ago, we talked about writing down every expense. Starting your budgeting process is writing down every expense. Everything you spend in cash and credit cards and debit cards, just to get an idea and get control over what exactly it is that you spend. So much goes out that we just don't even really think about.
You need to do it for 30 days. So every single dime or penny you spend for 30 days, write it down. If you don't have a budget, you need to start somewhere. And this is the best place to start.
Right.
So here's the thing. Beyond starting a budget and having a budget, if you already have a budget, I'm going to also to dig a little bit deeper, and I'm going to ask you to, I know it's boring, reconcile your monthly bank statements. And if you're not up to date, there's something I need to encourage you. Take the time, be purposeful, reconcile your bank statements. In fact, Charlene does that for us, and she has a bonder for each one of our companies. Why don't you grab that and show them to
Yeah, well, first of all, and the idea of reconciling your bank statements is important. A couple of months ago, I was reconciling one of our statements, and a sizable check did not clear. Very long story short, I make mobile deposits, and for some reason, some glitch, something happened, and this deposit didn't get made. So I was able to go back and remake it. I mean, I thought the deposit went through, but it didn't. Had I not reconciled that bank statement, I wouldn't have known that. So had I waited till February to go back and do the entire year, you know, it would have been too late. I wouldn't have known that. So it's important. I use a binder. I'm sorry, I'm about to hit Paul with my binder. Each company I have a binder for, and I have our financial statements in the front of the binder. Then I have another section that's our bank statements. Then we use for a couple of our businesses, we use a credit card processor that you know, our customers can pay through. So I have my credit card statements, you know, here, and then any Visa or MasterCard statements that I get, I put those here just so I can keep track of what I spend. And that's what works for us.
So besides reconciling your bank statements, I'm also going to ask you to develop a profit and loss statement and also a balance sheet. The purpose of me asking you to do this, the why behind this, I need you to have a clear, accurate assessment of where you are financially. Until you have reconciled everything, until you know exactly what you're spending and where you're spending it and putting it in different categories, and you have your balance sheet and your P&L done, you really don't know the state of your condition. And that is really, really important to start, because without having that starting off, you don't know where to go. And so I want you to also remember to keep it simple. You remember when in high school, the KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Well, if it's not simple, then I don't normally get it. And let me give you an idea of what I mean by that. Right now, Court and I are looking at two different projects. One is a 64 unit project, and the statement's about that thick, which is about 1/4 inch. Then we've got an 80 unit project that's about that thick. Well, you know which one kept it simple and which one didn't, right? So
And that 80 unit one is actually that 1 times 3.
Yes. So it is lots and lots of detail. You need to do it to the level of detail that you're comfortable with. As long as you're understanding the information and you can communicate the information to others, like a banker, like your trusted advisors, like the people that help you hold yourself accountable, that's all you need. I don't want to complicate it. It doesn't have to be that complicated. You can keep it simple and actually do it rather well. So this is what we want to find out. Here's some of the things I want you to know after you do all these. And after you reconcile, after you do your budget, you got your P&L and your balance sheet, we need to figure out how much cash you have on hand. We also need to figure out how much profit have you made, annual, quarterly, monthly, where and what services are profitable, and also most importantly, which services are not profitable. And if you're not keeping an eye on this, you really don't know what works and what doesn't work. So I really want you to focus on profit. When we get a deposit check, I have Charlene actually does an excellent job of this, of tracking our profit centers. So we have different categories on our P&L for the services that we offer. And we also, not just the revenue side, we have the expenses associated with that same profit center. So it's easy for me to pull up a project or a job, depending on how your software, you know, categorizes it or calls it. And it allows you to analyze and say, okay, well, this is how much profit I made. This is how much profit I didn't make. And, you know, you may be more in debt than you are in profit with that particular category. So you need to identify what services are generating revenue and those associated expenses with that. So here's my goal. I want you to maximize profit. I want to say that again because not everyone really thinks about this. There's a lot of reasons why we get into business, you know, for a lot of compelling reasons of that's the way we wired, we're gifted, and we want to help people. And we want to change the community. We want to change the industry. Whatever it is, those are all great attributes. If you want to continue to do it for long term, you better focus on profit. If you're not focused on profit, you're not going to do it a long time. And if you're not familiar with the failure rate of new businesses starting, it is way, way up there. And, you know, for a number of businesses that fail within the first few years compared to 5 years, 10 years, listen, our mom and pop businesses is the heartbeat of our industry. That's the pulse industry, and we need to keep us in business. And that's what drives this economy. And the only way we do that if we focus and maximize our profit. Here's the other thing. Once you have all the analysis done, you need to stop doing the things that aren't making you profit. That's hard to do, particularly when you're first starting a business. I know when I first started in business, Many years ago, I on the consulting side, I was grabbing anything and everything I could. I needed to get money into my house so that we could pay our bills, right? So listen, if it was construction related, I was doing it. If it was something I didn't offer currently, I offered it as soon as the person asked about it. Hey, do you offer this? Of course I do. Be happy to do that for you. That doesn't mean it was profitable. I want you to do this analysis so you know that it's profitable. And the things that are not, you need to stop doing those. I want you to grow the things and the services that are profitable. I want you to focus on profit. I want you to be the best at one thing. I want you to focus on one thing and be the best at it. Inch wide and mile deep. Not good at little things. I mean, not a little good at a lot of things. I said that wrong. But good at one thing and be the best at that. I also want you to master the process of being efficient. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So here's something that I read recently. Sustained profitability depends on efficiency. So how do you master efficiency? Well, have y'all heard of the time motion studies? A lot of different industries do it. And essentially what it is you write down every step it takes to finish a task or service you offer, how much time it takes for each step, identify who's responsible for that task, identify what resources are necessary for that task. If that task has multiple touches, multiple people that have to do something, you're dependent on someone else to take action before you can move on with the next step, because the next step's in your court. You're waiting for someone else to do theirs. So this helps you identify the bottlenecks in your process. Here's an example one I did many years ago. This was actually from a business plan I did in 2005. I know it's small print. Oh man, that light's really bad. But I want you to look at each one of those steps of what needs to be done. You don't need to be that fancy. You don't need to keep it where every thing is in a computer generated product. You can write it down on a legal pad. You can write down scrap paper, but you need to write down every step, who's responsible for it, how much time it takes. This is going to help you identify the bottlenecks. This is going to help you become more efficient. Remember, to have sustainable profitability, it all comes into efficiency. Use your critical thinking skills we talked about in part one. Last 2 weeks ago, we talked about critical thinking. If you haven't seen it, go back and go to the YouTube channel and watch it. There's some good critical thinking skills that you can have when you're analyzing these processes. Have some multiple people look at this. Your trusted advisors. Have them look at every step. Have that person ask the why. They may be going through it and say, well, why are you doing this? And you may not have a good answer. You say, well, that's the way that the person told me over there to do it. Well, that's not good enough. You need to drill down and understand the why. And that's going to allow you to make some better choices and better decisions on your flow chart. And then once you have identified those bottlenecks, revise it, pivot, adjust, react. It doesn't have to be perfect action, but any action at this point is better than no action at all. So you can always adjust again. There's nothing wrong with that. Our team does this on a regular basis. And not to be too crude, but we call it in our office, call my baby ugly. I give you the freedom and the flexibility to tell me I'm doing something wrong. It's okay. I have thick skin, so I don't get assaulted, I promise you. And everyone in our office practices this because that's how we become better. Is, hey, call my baby ugly. Where am I stubbing my toe? What can I do better? All right? So, Tommy, review your finances. Charlie, how often should we review those finances?
Guys, you should do this regularly. You should do this at least monthly. You need to use some type of accounting software, something where you keep track of what you're spending. I use QuickBooks, but there's lots of other options out there. But when we first started using QuickBooks, there wasn't too many choices. We key the checks as we go, key the deposits as I receive them, print something out every month. If you wait, it's going to be too late to make changes. If we print it out every month and we see where we've made money, where we've spent money, we can make adjustments. If something's not making us money, maybe we shouldn't be doing it. Or if, something's costing us too much money, maybe we should make some changes. The only way you can keep track of that is if you do this regularly. at year end is too late. You know, when I worked as a CPA in professional accounting, the clients who didn't do real well were the ones who didn't look at, you know, 2019 until like February of 2020 when they were passing it on to their accountant. You know, at that point, it's really way too late. You need to keep up with this stuff. It's not about how much revenue you make. It's about how much cash you have at the end of the day. You want to hold on to it and keep as much cash as you can.
Yeah, so there's a Steve Tran is a real estate investor on the East Coast that Courtney and I and Charlene follow. And last week he spoke at our mastermind. He says he meets with his CPA weekly. And what he's doing is he's trying to stay ahead of his cash. And the way he's doing this is that he is understanding exactly where his revenue is. He understands where his expenses are because he's looking at them every week. And he's got to a point where he's very consistent. He knows what's coming up. He knows what's in the pipeline. So he's able to predict where his cash is going to be for the next 2 to 3 weeks. That is ahead of the curve. That is a phenomenal place to be. That's somebody's being extremely intentional about focusing on profit. Yeah. Because he can make those changes before they happen as opposed to waiting after the fact and then changing. I mean, he's able to react and pivot before it becomes a train wreck. I love that. I hope to be there one day. I'm not there now. I mean, we do it once a month. And, you know, there are times when sometimes once a month is not often enough. We said, oh man, I wish I did this every 2 weeks. I would have caught this. Listen, it's not a perfect process, but we're better today than we were 5 years ago. And that's our goal, is to get better every single year, a little bit different, a little bit better, and adjust for that. So listen, this is a very dynamic process. All right, my entrepreneurs, I'm gonna ask you a question. I want you to put your answer in the chat box. So get ready. If you haven't highlighted the chat box at the very bottom, I want you to do it. Here's my question. How many entrepreneurs pay all their bills and their employees before they pay themselves or save money to pay income taxes? Let me see your answers. How many of y'all pay all your bills and your employees first before you pay yourself and before you put money aside for income taxes? Come on, be honest. All right. Rocky says he pays himself.
Tell me, so Dana says she pays her bills first. Tell me this, you guys. Say you do a flip. Miriam says she puts money for herself first. Say you guys get the check from a flip or a wholesale deal. What's the first thing you're going to do with it? What are the first few steps you're going to do?
And listen, this question could be for any business, not just real estate investing. It could be for any business out there. These are, in fact, a lot of principles that Charlene and I talk about tonight could be applied to any business model and also your personal finances as well. All right, so Justin says he puts it back in another deal. Pixel pays all my debt first. All right, so here's the thing. Vince says pay yourself first. Our traditional business model is sales less expenses equals your profit. Let me tell you the challenge with that. Human nature is when you're killing it on sales and you're full of revenue, your revenues is high. What do we typically do as humans? We go spend more money, right? We don't watch it very carefully. We got lots of money. Who cares? We don't have to watch it carefully. It's not that big of a deal. We can go spend some money. And sometimes we make some poor choices under those scenarios. And when things are tight, we do just the opposite, right? We go and try and make more sales in order to make more revenue to pay up some of our expenses. So here's the profit focus model. So instead of the sales minus expenses equal profit, the profit focus model is sales less profit equals expenses. You pay yourself first. And what's left over is you manage the rest of your business, what's left over. So you have your revenue, you pay yourself first, you put some money aside for your taxes, right? You have your profit, you pay yourself, which profit and paying yourself are two different categories now. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So you put some money aside for profit, put some money aside for yourself, put some money aside to pay taxes, and what's left over at that point is your operating expenses, right, for your business. So first account for your profit, your taxes, and your paycheck. What's left over is available to spend on everything else. So under this profit-focused approach, it forces you to actively look for ways to cut expenses. You'll be surprised how much you can eliminate expense-wise when you have to. What has most of the industry happened since March? Are people going to the office to work? No, they're working from home. A lot of companies are realizing very quickly, man, I don't need this commercial space right now. I'm getting just as much production, if not greater production, from my people that are working from their house. Well, you think they would have thought that a year ago? Well, they weren't forced to think about it until now, until March. So if you look at this, your mindset's a little bit different. You switch your mindset around and you say, hey, I'm going to have sales, less profits, and equals expenses. What's left over is going to force you to hyper-focus on where you can cut some expenses. So I want you to use the envelope system to manage your profit and spending. Let me just tell you a real brief story. I learned the envelope system from my grandmother, my mom's mom. And the way grandma used to manage her money was when grandpa gave her some money for the household, he gave her, I don't know, call it $500. I don't know how much money they had, but grandpa would give grandma $500. Well, she'd go to her closet, she'll pull out an old purse that's on the floor, she'll open up that purse, she's got a bunch of envelopes in it, and they were all labeled different things. Hey, this is for electricity, this is for the gas, this is for food, this is for gifts, birthday, and for the gift sheet, we had, listen, I had 18, she had 19 grandchildren, I was one of 19 on that one side, so she had lots of gifts to buy. So she had to manage her money really, really well. So she would put a little bit of money in every envelope every month when she got some money. And she would only spend what was in an envelope. So if she had to go to the grocery, she would only take out money from that envelope that was labeled food or grocery. And that's what she had to spend. And she made it work no matter what. And she actually did a very good job. 5 kids, 19 grandchildren, she did a phenomenal job. So I want you to take that same approach, this envelope system, and I'm just going to use it as an example to, you don't necessarily have to use envelopes. I'm just using it as an example for you to help you see and envision the system, the profit-focused system. So you get $1,000 revenue coming in. Now with $1,000, the first thing you do is you can put a small percentage towards profit. You can put a portion of it towards your owner's pay, where you're paying yourself. You put another small portion towards paying income taxes. So that's 3 envelopes so far. The remaining envelopes is if you have debt, you have to manage your debt. That's another envelope of debt payoff. And then also operating expenses. If it's not in the operating expenses envelope, meaning you've already spent all those money, you need to get really creative and figure out what can you do next time not to have that shortfall. You've got to plan ahead of time. It allows you, forces you to analyze and make some better choices based on the envelope system. So reevaluate every element of your business. This profit focus is going to force you to look at your business model differently than you have to have in the past. And it's going to allow you to stay in business and allow you to do what you're gifted and what you love to do and how you like to operate your business. And then after you do that, after you have this profit-focused model already in play, you'll go back and revise your budget. There's no doubt you're going to find things in your budget you're not going to do. I can't spend the money. I don't have the money for that. So go back and revise your budget. I know that Charlene told you to go ahead and do your budget, writing down everything that you ever spend for the next 30, 31 days, get an idea where you're spending it. You can identify real fast. When Sean and I did this a couple of years ago, I didn't realize how much money we spent at the grocery store. My gosh, we spend some money at the grocery store.
We do.
And it forced me to look at it. I was saying, hey, we have money left over the end of the month. We're okay. We're good. Yeah, that's just poor management. And we didn't operate our business that way, but our personal side, we weren't as focused and intentional with that. Well, I can tell you when we first went through this program 8, 9 years ago,
Yeah.
we got really intentional about our personal side. Now, speaking of the next thing, one of those envelopes I talked about was managing debt. If you have debt, what do you do to get out of it? And let me just kind of give you a precursor. So I'm gonna let Charlene take this over. And I know not everyone agrees with this, and it's okay. Listen, there's no judgment here. I can just tell you how we do it and why we do it. You can have to make your own decision and choice of how you want to do it. But I don't like being in debt. I can tell you that not being in debt helped us get through since March, because we had some rental properties that weren't rented; they were vacant.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get them rented because of COVID. Right? They're rented now. They've been rented for 60 days now. So, well, one 60 days, one about 30 days. But if we had to pay a mortgage on that, it was a duplex for the multifamily, we would be in a world of hurt compared to where we are today. So our personal focus is not to be in debt. That doesn't mean you can't be in debt. My gosh, if you could get 2.25%, 2.5% mortgage right now for your primary, I think I would do that for sure. I think that's cheap money. But under normal circumstances, I'm not a big fan of that. So, all right. So I'm gonna let Charlene take over because I've been talking enough, and we're gonna talk about how to manage debt.
Guys, like anything else, you need to have a plan. To succeed with anything, you need a plan. So, the debt's building up. The only way to get it paid off is to make a plan. First, you want to make a chart. You want to list every single debt and obligation that you have. You want to list what it is. Is it a car loan? Is it a mortgage? Is it a Visa? List what it is. List the remaining balance, the monthly payments, the interest rate. List all of your details on that, the due date. Develop a summary chart of what your debts are. We use a system called the debt snowball. It's a Dave Ramsey approach. The way you do this is the debt with the highest interest rate is the one you want to get rid of first. You figure out how much extra is in your budget each month. Now, you may have to make some cuts in order to get some extra money going, but figure out how much extra is in your budget each month and pay that additional amount towards the debt with the highest interest rate. Say it's $200 that you have extra, and say your Visa's got your highest interest rate. Pay that $200 additional, in addition to what you would normally pay on that Visa, every month until that's paid off. Then you're making your regular monthly minimum payments on all of your other bills, your mortgages, your car note, everything else. So once that Visa is paid off, then you need to take what you were paying on that Visa, plus the $200, plus what you were normally paying on your debt with the next highest interest rate, and start throwing all that towards that debt. By doing that, you're going to get that paid off. Keep paying everything else, at the regular minimum amount, and throw all of that, the $200, the what you were paying on the Visa and what you were paying on that current debt, to that debt. Then go on to the next one with the next highest interest rate. Keep doing this until you get everything paid off. There's a freedom associated with being debt-free, and especially in this time of COVID where, we're not bringing in the income that we normally bring in. It's definitely a time that you'll prize being debt-free or being on the road to being debt-free.
Listen, that's the way we look at it. We think there's a lot of freedom and flexibility and options when you don't have debt. And now there are some debt that's smart debt. And when I say this, I'm really specifically focused on consumer debt. We don't have any consumer debt, but also your mortgages. When you get to the point where, at least in our business model, our goal is to have our rental properties paid off, and we want to be debt free. So that's just, again, you have to write down your goals as well. So how do we do it? When we're setting goals, we always start with the end in mind. So we'll write down and we'll dream, hey, what's our 10-year goal? And then we said, okay, well, if we're going to get to our 10-year goal, what's our 5-year target look like in order to get to that 10-year goal? And then we write down what's our 1-year target. And then we'll write it down even in smaller increments as every 90 days, what do we need to do every 90 days to reach our 1-year target? And it helps us manage this really, really, really big goal to something a little bit smaller, from 5 years to 1 year to 90 days. Anybody can focus for 90 days. I mean, you can get rejuvenated every 90 days. And as you start building momentum on achieving that, it even helps you even more to stay focused on that. But always start with the end in mind, because that gives you that motivation to make those tough choices. Listen, to do what we're doing takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of intentionality. And if you're at a point where you don't know how to do this, or you need someone to pull those dreams out of you, those goals out of you, and help you plan, even as far as if you are, you really don't understand how to read a balance sheet or a profit and loss statement, or how to do this, the debt snowball that Charlene talked about, get a financial coach. They're all over the place. But you want to get one that is probably someone that you have watched what they do and emulate them, meaning they're doing what they're saying. They're not just preaching it, they're walking the walk. And I think I'd also find someone that is, if you're in real estate, be real estate specific. Find a financial coach that understands real estate and does real estate investing. That helps, because the more connection points and sticky points you have with that financial coach is going to help them advise you on how to do it. And you have much greater confidence. You say, well, yeah, that person's doing it. I can see that now. I can do that too. And it gives you some confidence. So something else we do is we do weekly team meetings. And the weekly team meeting sometimes can get a little lengthy. It's better to keep it an hour and a half or so or less. But it also gives you an opportunity to stay on track with those weekly team meetings to meet your 90-day goals, your 30-day and your 90-day goals. And it also has a level of accountability, because you also review the open items. And everybody knows what you're supposed to be doing from the previous week's team meeting. And they're going to ask you about it. Hey, did you get this done? Okay, well, yeah, I got that done. Here we are. Here's the status report. I didn't get that done. And you're going to write it in again and do it the following week. And then on top of that, we have our financial review every quarter. And again, just looking at finances. So in addition to our weekly team meetings, we look every quarter financially at the big picture, make sure we're meeting that. And then Charlie and I are typically doing it every 30 days anyway. So we know at the end of that quarter where we are and where we need to be. But it's a means of communicating to an entire group of where we are financially. So, all right. So we gave you a huge amount of information. I don't expect you to incorporate all these things at once. I think if you can make some monthly incremental changes and be consistent, write it on the board. You see in the background behind Charlene's beautiful head. Look at our board of our goals back there, right? The things we do, different projects. Write it down on a vision board. However you need to see it and keep it fresh. Tape it to your bathroom mirror. Listen, when you're brushing your teeth every morning, read it. Say it out loud. You're of all the people that are talking throughout the day, you're listening to yourself more than anything else. Say it out loud. There's a saying that one of our pastors at our church says, by an inch, it's a cinch. By a yard, it's hard. Do some small incremental improvements. You don't have to do this all at once. In fact, if you try to do it all at once, you're not going to be very effective. We want you to be successful with this, but it is going to require a lot of discipline, some intentionality, and dedication to see it in. That goes back to that goal. Drill down to those goals and really get those motivators. What makes you kick your legs out on the side of your bed every day and get up and go do your job? Something's driving you. You got those motivators. Figure it out. Write them down. Remind yourself when it's difficult to make that tough choice. When you're passing by that CC's coffee house at Starbucks and you want that real big, tall cup of coffee, and you say, I ain't got $7 today. Hey, keep that motivator. It helps with those decisions. All right, so here's the thing. I want you to write down some questions. Put them in the chat, and then Courtney's going to moderate that. If you have any questions about tonight, if you want to know more about our systems, we only have a short period of time. We can't teach you everything in 45 minutes, but we want to help. And if we don't have the answers, we can direct the people who do have the answers. Something else I want to point out to you is another great book. Again, 2 weeks ago, we talked about some books for you to go read. A lot of the principles we talked about that were profit focused are in this book right here, Profit First. Can I get that a little bit closer? Can y'all read that? Great book, easy read, really forces you to be focused on profit, and it changes your mindset. And it is very different from what most entrepreneurs use. Remember, if you're going to be successful, you can do this long-term. Sustainable profit comes from efficiency, and you need to focus on profit first.
So Rocky said, is there an audio book? Rocky, probably so. Check and see. It is I don't know if it's a New York Times bestseller, but it's a very popular book.
Yeah, and it's in St. Tammany Parish, at least. It's available at the library.
Oh, excellent. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
That's actually how we read it the first time. We got it from the library first. We do a lot of our books at the library.
Right.
All right, you guys. So here's your chance. If you've got some questions, type it into the chat. Here's one of the things, Charlene, I want to ask you. Can you break down and can you make some recommendations? If people are new to accounting for a business, you guys talked about a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet. Can you kind of give some overviews of some tips and tricks for that?
Sure. We've been using QuickBooks for many years. It's pretty simple to set up. If you set it up, it'll allow you to choose from a predetermined chart of accounts based on your business, and then you key in your checks as you go. If you're handwriting them, or you can print them from QuickBooks, you key in your deposits, and then you click on the button that says reconcile, and you start working on reconciling. It all takes time, but there's tutorials and all on it. Me personally, I like the desktop version because that's what I'm used to. There is a version for Apple, there's a version for Mac, there's an online version. But with the online version, you pay by company, and we use QuickBooks for each of our businesses and for our personal. And if I was paying by company, I'd be paying a lot of money. So I like the QuickBooks for my desktop. That's my preference.
So a profit and loss sheet, if you haven't seen a profit and loss sheet, essentially it starts at the very top with revenue, and you can categorize different types of revenue, different types of sales, and we do that. We track what services are making what amount of money on the revenue side, and also expenses. So first starts off with income, and then right below income are your expenses, and you can categorize expenses by a job. So if you got a couple different projects that are floating around right now, a couple different flips, you can certainly classify that by project, by job. It helps you, again, identify what the costs were for that project. And it goes back and you can compare it to your budget, which is really neat. You can say, hey, I got this flip project. I think I'm going to put $20,000 into it. In reality, you spent $18,000 versus your $20,000 budget. Well, that's great. But if you're not tracking this and all of a sudden you're spending $25,000 and you only had a $20,000 budget, then that certainly affects the bottom line. So the P&L starts with income. Then it has your expenses, and at the very bottom, it subtracts the difference between the two and tells you if you made a profit or a loss.
And that's what you need to be sending to your accountant at year end if you're not doing your own taxes. If you're using TurboTax, then you'll have everything taken care of for you.
And here's something that's really helpful is this is something that I had to learn, was know when to grow and what to get into for where you're at. For example, QuickBooks might be necessary for you, but I started out working on Google Sheets. I did all my accounting, I think, for 2 or 3 years through Google Sheets. Yep. But then eventually it was like, okay, I had different companies. And by this point, I don't know, by this point I have 6 or 7 companies. And now it's to the point where now I have someone, I have assistance with the accounting. And I have it through QuickBooks, because at a certain point, like, you've got to know when to outgrow it, right? And here's the thing too, know what's your strengths and know what's your weaknesses. Say that to a degree. If it's taking you 3 hours just to read a profits and loss statement, okay, know when to get some input. At the same time, You also don't want to just put some receipts across the table and say, figure out my taxes. You want to be educated coming to the table, because there's things that I've done that I've either suggested, or I want to know what's going on. I don't want to give someone 100% control. If that makes sense, y'all?
Actually, Courtney, you bring up a great point, and this is something that Charlene and I talked about last night when we were preparing for tonight's meeting, and we failed to discuss it tonight, was how to protect yourself from embezzlement. There are times where you may say, hey, punching in that data and doing the QuickBooks is not my strength. I'll outsource that. And that could be an employee, a subcontractor, someone maybe inside or outside your office you don't know. So one of the ways that you can, and again, it's this checks and balances, that you can do this is that you can have someone input all the data, and then there could be, and also in charging, they could be writing checks as well. So we would, in the past, we would have 2 lines for signing a check. And yet 2 people had to sign in reference to have that check valid. In addition to that, we would have the bank statements mailed to a different address. So our office would handle all of the accounting. Our bank statements with the canceled checks would come to our primary residence. So that if it came to the office, if they were embezzling, they can go in that envelope and pull out the checks they were trying to hide. But if it comes to your primary residence, you get to see those canceled checks, you get to review those statements, and you get to make sure that everyone's honest. And that's the checks and balances.
Right.
You'll be surprised as how many entrepreneurs I've talked to in the past that have lost tens of thousands of dollars from embezzlement. It's extremely common. And it's because they don't have those checks and balances in play. And I'm not saying we don't trust everyone, but trust and verify.
Yeah, and I've even served on the board of different organizations that does something similar to that. The person who is the treasurer and writes the checks does not get the bank statements. The bank statements may go to the president of the organization, or, that there needs to be more than one person looking at this stuff.
And that's huge. I mean, I just Googled, because I wanted to remember the story. Franco's in Mandeville, the mom and pop, but the growing, gym. They had $1.7 million embezzled from them from a worker, right?
Yes.
I'm on a board of directors for where I have one of my properties, and HOAs are infamous for, embezzlement. Look, when I got here on the board, it was one of the things I said, look, let's start talking. My background's in property management. I said, okay, let's look at the responsibilities of the property manager that we had on staff. Eventually, we changed the duties of that person, because she had a lot of power that was unchecked. So when we brought in some oversight, she immediately quit. When we gave her her new job description, she immediately quit. And we could tell over time that she was doing things of putting money in her pocket. Her boyfriend was getting a lot of the handyman jobs. Her friends and family were getting the contractor jobs, and they weren't qualified to do so. So here's the thing is, across the board, here's one of the things is, if you wait until the end of the year to do your books, you are setting yourself up to undercut yourself throughout the year. Because how do you know in first quarter, let's say you're losing money in first quarter and you just keep going. Well, by the end of the year, it's too late. Here's the other thing, tax strategies. You cut yourself short with tax strategies if you don't know where you're at profit and loss wise. This could be your best year you've ever had, and you need to strategize, but because your bookkeeping is not up to date, you limit yourself on some options you can take at the end of the year to reduce those tax liabilities. It's not sexy, it's not fun. It's something that just comes with the territory. But I'll tell you this, if you don't have a good pulse on your, the money that you're making and the money that you're losing, and I'll tell you this, so many people are like, oh, I made $5,000 on a wholesale deal, or I made $30,000 on this deal. No, you didn't, because there are so many like taxes, there's so many things that have to get paid out, that so many people, they say, oh, my rent, my mortgage is $500, but the rent's $1,000. I made $500. No, you didn't, right? So, and then whenever you get to see your actual accounting, you can actually see it shrinks down. But here's the thing is, hey, it's important. Here's the thing is, I've got goals of I changed one of my LLCs to an S Corp, so it can start paying me a W-2 instead of just me pulling profits. I'm paying myself a salary because I'm working in the business. And I want to make X amount as a salary. Well, guess what needs to happen? The revenue needs to get to that place to support it. Well, if I don't know what the revenue is throughout the year, how am I going to know what my salary is going to be for the year? Right? So there's a lot that rides on knowing where your company stands. Here's the thing though, I can't tell you how many times I know people who don't have their bookkeeping in order, and I'm like, how do you know if the boat's sinking? How do you know if the boat's floating? How do you know if you're going on a great trip? You don't. You don't. Yeah. Oh yeah, Vince, you said two workers. Rocky, you're funny. Look, here's the thing is, you've got to find a way to build this stuff in.
Time block. Listen, there's got to be a time every week where you are focusing on your business accounting, your finances. Because if you don't do it, then no one's going to do it. Right. And it won't be profitable. So block some time out. And listen, to me, and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, this is a morning activity. If I was doing this, although Charlene does it, but if I was doing it, this would be morning activity because it would require a lot of focus, energy on my part. I'm not going to do this at the end of the day after lunch when I'm tired, I'm distracted with other projects. This is something where you're not going to multitask. You're just going to focus in on this one task, is one task only, while you're fresh early in the morning.
Here's something, guys. Whenever they introduced themselves, they talked about their 4 children. He mentioned that one of his kids has two rental properties in the beginning. Do y'all care about sharing how old they are?
Right. Well, yeah. It's our second child. It's Nathan. He's 21. He's a firefighter, and he's a hustler. He's got quite a few side jobs, and all firefighters do, right? So Nathan found these homes on his own, and the first one was a foreclosure, and he negotiated a really good deal. It was in phenomenal shape in the desirable area. It's positive cash flow since day one. And the second house, and that was a year ago. And he's got a second house since then. And so, listen, he is constantly looking and searching for opportunities. And our other kids are as well. In fact, our third child, Jonathan, he's chomping at the bit. He says, "Hey, Dad, this is what I have. Keep your eyes open. Let me know if there's an opportunity I need to work."
And he's 19.
Right.
If you teach these principles at home, they'll start learning it. They'll start doing it. The way Paul and I got into real estate to begin with was we didn't have the money for a full mortgage, so we built a duplex, and the other side helped pay the note. So that's how we started with this.
And we did a lot of sweat equity on the building, so we were able to get that equity in. We called in some favors, did some bartering. And we were able to rent that other side within a month of us moving into the home. So it helped us pay our mortgage on that property.
And here's something that I've started doing is whenever I left my career in property management, I said, okay, I immediately, within 2 weeks, I bought a property to flip and all this stuff. But deals can be few and far between sometimes, especially in real estate. And look, depending on what type of field you're an entrepreneur in, that's very frequent. For being a self-employed person, sometimes you can have great months, sometimes the months can vary. But so one of the things is that I said, look, I want to make sure there were some things that I did that in order to let the business breathe and live, I did get a little bit of credit card debt, right? Living off in the beginning of a few years. One of the biggest things that I've done though has been I've hustled because I'm like, you know what? I'm paying that down because one, I want the business to breathe, but at the same time, I don't want to have that consumer debt, right? So called, take that consumer debt. And so I've got where it's been paid down. What I did was I would go find stuff. First of all, I went around the house and I found stuff that I could sell. And I was taking that and I was flipping on Facebook Marketplace, anything like that. I was taking stuff that was coming out of houses. I bought a house in December and I got a boat out of it and sold it and things like that. And all I'm doing is I'm taking that money. I'm not going and getting, new pair of sunglasses or whatever. No, I'm throwing that toward that debt and bringing it down. That there's a time where sometimes it made sense for it, but hey, look, the debt part, I see a lot of people who are wanting to get into real estate investing or start a business, but they're stifled by that debt. Like maybe they can't qualify for a mortgage because they have too much debt. So it is one of those things where, hey, look at what stood out to you. Maybe tonight the accounting part stood out to you, like, hey, I really need to get a good system for the accounting for my businesses. Or maybe it stood out to you that, hey, I need to understand this a little more, or maybe the debt management part or the budgeting. I'll tell you this, one of the best parts about Profit First is that most people don't realize, they just think, well, I'll spend whatever money just to get revenue for a business. That doesn't work. And I find that so many people don't budget for their business, and then all of a sudden they're buying their business out of, like, they're just spending their business into the ground. You guys have any more questions for Paul and Charlene? If so, go ahead and you can type them in the chat section below.
Listen, I want to encourage you, if you're not comfortable with the accounting, with reading and understanding balance sheets and profit and loss and figuring out financial calculations, there are a lot of resources out there. I mean, you can go to and find and search for financial coaches. Something else too is that you can go to the local Chamber of Commerce, and they are retired executives that would help you draft the business plan and teach you how to read financial statements. These big deals that Gordon and I were talking about earlier, this 60 house package and 80 house package that we're analyzing, a lot of it is looking at their financial statements, and you need to be at a level of comfort and confidence. You know what you're reading, you're understanding it, but most importantly, you also know how somebody's cooking the books, because not everyone's honest. There's a lot of ways you can cook these books and try and disguise something and make it look profitable when in reality it's not. Right. So you got to understand that these financial statements are important, not just for you personally, but also for deals you may be analyzing in the future. Take the time to educate yourself. Get some coaching on this. This is something that will carry you through for your entire life, and you can pass it on to your kids and your grandkids.
And here's something that's really important is whether it's a rental or it is a company in whatever field, or it is an apartment complex or a package of rentals, whenever we look at those, so whenever I look at commercial, I ask for a few things. And part of that is their financials. If they don't have good records, let's say it's a mom and pop who didn't professionally manage their business, their apartment complex, their rentals, whenever they say, oh, I can't show you what I spent or what I made the last 1 to 3 years, immediately what that's going to tell me is that there's one, I can't properly analyze the deal, but then two, that's not going to help them get the most money for their deal.
Yes.
Whether it's a business, because I don't know if you've ever analyzed a business to buy a business, but whether it's that, apartment complex, whether it's whatever it may be, if you don't have it together like that, you're going to leave some money on the table. The other thing is that you might be trying to hide some things in there, but like, for example, like with an apartment complex, if you self-manage it, but I'm going to be managing it through a company, well, I can just easily say, okay, what did you're not paying this, but I know it's going to cost this. I can build it into the numbers. So it's one of those things, which is why those packets are super thick or super skinny or whatever. So Rocky says, how did your oldest child get 100% cash flow back? Do you want to tell him what's going on with that?
Yeah, so it's Rocky, if I misspoke, it's not 100% cash flow back, but he is in a positive cash flow. So he's able to, because of the price point he purchased his home at through foreclosure, he did the sweat equity improvements himself, and the rent that he's receiving far outweighs his obligations on the mortgage, on property taxes, on flood insurance, and the other things he has in the home. So what I meant to communicate is it's positive cash flow, not 100% cash back.
Good stuff. If you guys got any questions, go down in the chat box down there. If no one has any further questions, or Paul and Charlene don't have anything additional to say, we don't have to go all the way until 8 o'clock, but there's a great opportunity if you have some questions to ask them. One of those things is Paul and Charlene have built and managed multiple different type of companies for numerous years with employees, which is actually, that's when things start getting complex from the accounting side, is when right, Charlene?
Yes, that's right.
And so that's when things start become complex whenever you grow. And so it's all going to depend on your goals. For example, yes, it's important to have your profit and loss statement, but they're going to look differently as far as all your expenses if you're just having one rental property or doing one flip a year versus if you're doing 20 flips a year or you have 100 rentals. So depends on your goals. Some of these things will be adjusted.
Listen, those flow chart that I showed earlier, we revise that often. In fact, one of our companies, its slow time starts around end of October, beginning of November. So every November is the time for our team to get together and analyze, what did we do good? What did we do bad? How can we make it better? And it's not just how can we make the bad stuff better, how can you make the good stuff better? In fact, we're focused on that first, because it's you'll get more benefit, more bang for your buck in having smart, sustainable growth, improving efficiencies of a well-oiled machine, as opposed to trying to small increment and bring something up that's not working well for you. That's why I made the comment earlier. If it's not profitable, you need to stop doing it and focus, hyper-focus on the things that are profitable. Give you a good example of that. And we did this a couple years back, where we changed when we collected funds from our clients when we were going to the home. So one of the businesses on the consulting side, it's a building science consulting forensic investigation business, where we help people out very simply. It's a complicated word for, we help you with comfort and moisture problems. So what we started doing is, first let me step back. Let me tell you what we used to do. The way our flow worked is customer would call in for an appointment. We would make that appointment, find them in the schedule, something between our calendar and theirs. Then we would send them a contract. And then we would have to wait a couple of days and follow up saying, hey, did you sign the contract? Send it back. And then we say, okay, we're going to go to your house. When we're at your home, we're going to collect a check. Well, how many times, particularly in today's world, people don't use a lot of checks anymore. And they wouldn't have the check ready, or the checkbook's at the office, or whatever the case would be. Okay, well then, we'll send you an invoice later, and we will invoice you, and you can mail in a check. So what we started doing now is, in order to change that and to not have to go back and chase our money, but also to get some cash flow sooner, is when you make the appointment, you're signing that contract at the very same day, and you're paying us with a credit card. That was the credit card processor sheet in the bonder that Charlene showed you earlier. And the benefit of that, although it costs us a few percent to charge that into the credit card companies, is worth every penny, because I'm not chasing my money. I'm not wasting time in my office, somebody looking and searching for money, getting signed contracts, and we get paid up front. And, they trust us enough because of our level of professionalism and our reputation in the industry that we're going to show up at their home, we're going to do exactly what we said we're going to do. If it costs more money than what they paid us, then we'll stop at the later date. But the majority of the time, we've done this long enough, we can listen to the customer and understand the size of the home and the challenges they're facing, and give them a quote and collect that money before we leave the office. And that has helped tremendously on our cash flow side. And also, we don't have any bad debts, because if you don't pay us, I'm not showing up.
Right. And just the idea of knowing where you stand, what bills are coming in, what income is coming in. You know, in another business, our partner manages the day-to-day operations. And if a big expense is coming and cash is low, I'll call him up and say, hey, when are you going to get some more money in? You know, can you do something to make this job go faster? We need to get some cash in. And usually, you know, there's something we can do, but we would never know that. We would never know that next week we may fall short on bills if we're not keeping up with it. So it's important. Keep up with your day-to-day operations.
If you've ever done a return on investment calculation, you're trying to figure out what is my rate of return, the shorter that time from when you pay it out to when it's returned back to you is the greater percentage. So if you can shorten that pay cycle,
Right.
your rate of return is far, far greater.
Absolutely.
I see that Vince had mentioned he does the same thing. That, hey, I do that with my financial coaching clients. They pay up front. It shows vesting in the process, skin in the game, so to speak. And days sales outstanding, receivable versus payables. Yeah, that's, listen, those are great principles to operate your business by. And we mentioned this earlier, I just want to reiterate it, because although we're talking about business financial principles, you can apply each and every one of these principles to your own personal finances and apply it there as well and make great strides and improvements.
Absolutely.
We should be teaching these principles in school. I really wish our schools would teach this at our high school and college level. They just don't, and we need to get back to that.
And here's one of those realities is no matter where you're starting out at, like everyone's starting somewhere different. In these days and age, you don't know, does someone have student loan debt? Do they have, credit card debt? Or, hey, I have no credit, I need to establish credit. It varies greatly on what is going, where you're having to start at. Business wise though, I think it's also important to keep in mind that you bring your mindset into your finances, your own mindset about it. You bring it into your business finances and your investing finances and everything. So I know that I read a ton of books just to adjust and continue to improve my mindset. A really great book is The Richest Man in Babylon. You can actually listen to it on Audible. You can listen on YouTube. You can read it. That one of the great things that one talks about, which has been one of my big roles this year, one of my big goals has been multiple streams of income and having them to where Paul calls them profit centers. So that, like, for example, if you're just doing one thing, well, if something happens to that one thing, you still have money coming in other places.
Let me share something else too, Cody, because we mentioned about growing smart and having employees. There are other systems we can talk about that we've utilized in the past. And again, back to my crew comments of how we talk about them, describe them in the office as hit by the bus system. So if one of our employees is doing something, they need to have that system written down so that anyone in our office, we can do cross-training so that we're all familiar with how to achieve that task. But everyone in the office can pick up that system and pick up and be productive with it from day one. If that person that's doing it gets hit by a bus and they're not there at the company anymore, we need to continue to function, be able to function in that capacity without missing a lick. And the only way you can do that is to work out these flow charts and these systems and these processes. 2 weeks ago, we mentioned the book Traction that helps you identify what to do and how to do that, how to develop these systems and these processes. And that really is very, very important. If you're more than one person in your office, boy, you better have some of these things in place in order for everyone to be productive.
Vince said that he's going through a class at home with his daughter called Foundations in Personal Finance, and he has a link to it. Here, this is a huge thing. I know I learned a course through you guys. I did Financial Peace University 15, 20 years ago. But Crown University, you guys?
Crown
Crown
Financial.
Financial.
Crown Financial? Okay. There's so many different things out there. Those are huge as far as being able to do some of these things out here. There's a lot of resources and books. Here's the thing is, if you've got a spouse, do it. If you're dating, do it with the person. If you're seriously dating someone, do it with them. These are huge because, look, I know people who are like, hey, I'd be a millionaire by now if I didn't marry someone who's completely opposite from me when it comes to money.
That's true.
Right? A lot of people, they don't realize that. Rocky, yes, it's Richest Man in Babylon. I'll have to look at, I just read it, but it's a classic. It's been around for a good while. So that one is a great one to read. And it's, let me see who it's by. Because yeah, George Clason. It's by George Clason. But there are some fantastic nuggets that you guys could take away from tonight. All right. A virtual Financial Peace University class. All right. Thanks, Vince. If y'all look in the comment section with that. But ultimately, guys, it's important where your mind is on money. It's important how you're handling it. It's important what you're keeping of it. And it's important how you're surrounding yourself with people and how they think about money. Because if all you do is get around people who say, as soon as I make money, I spend it, it may lead you to become someone who whenever you make money, all you do is spend it, right? As soon as people got those stimulus check, if someone was like, oh, I'm gonna get a brand new TV. I literally have a friend who posted a picture because they're doing an eviction now in Texas, and they walked through the house and the person, instead of spending their stimulus money on rent, they literally had a big old box for a brand new 86-inch TV. But they're getting evicted. And not to stirp anything, but it's just the idea of, if you, as soon as you get stuff, all you're thinking about is how you're going to spend it on new fun stuff. Keep that in mind. Keep out who you surround yourself with. Look, Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentors and speakers and authors, he has a quote that says, success is just simple daily disciplines done repetitively, right? It just small disciplines done on a repeat basis. That's how you achieve success. But that's also the way he says also failure is not a catastrophic event. It's just small errors in judgment on a daily basis. And so there's little things that you can do that can take you a long way. And it matters when it comes to your money. It matters what your mindset and how you're feeding your mind about money and who you're surrounding yourself with and how you're learning and how you're growing. So, Paul, Shirley, any final words before we close things out here?
Yeah.
Hey, we're here to help. If you need some help, send us an email, or you can actually post here on the Facebook site. And you can go with an invitation, push a question there. We want to be able to point you in the right direction, give you some resources.
And for everyone else, you guys, as a reminder, our next events are going to be June 30th, talking about 1031 exchanges. We've got July 2nd on house hacking. July 7th, Mitzi Diane, I'm excited to have her come talk about finding your flow and getting out of your own way. And July 14th, we're going to be meeting in person in Covington. If you're ready to meet in person, we're going to do part 2 of how is COVID-19 affecting the real estate market. And we're going to have people from all different parts of the panel come and speak, of the industry come and speak on a panel. So thank you guys for attending. I hope you have a great night. And we're going to be having the recording on this on YouTube. So if you didn't watch part 1, go check us out on YouTube. Just look up North Shore RIA. And hope everyone has a great night. Paul and Shirley, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Great job. Thank you,
y'all.
guys. Good night, everyone.
Night.